Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing okay this afternoon. Let me check sound. Actually, I checked before we started, but I always do it just to be on the safe side. First, I want to thank everyone for your support of the channel. If you enjoy what's being put down, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and for that matter, trying to take the channel further off of the YouTube thing. So if you really do enjoy the content and you haven't helped through Patreon and you can share $1, please do so. So John McCain has kicked the bucket. 81 years old. John McCain. He is, well, he's John McCain. There's not much to say. He's been around ever since I have been in any level of political awareness. He has been, you can say, somewhat of an icon in the political sphere. Warmonger, John McCain. I have a war going in me on this story. I have multiple stories for today, but I'm starting off with this one. There's a war within me on this story. I can see the programming extraordinarily clearly. This idea of what I think versus what I feel about this. I'm going to explain it, and I'm going to try to do this story in about 15 minutes or less. My mom tells me to not speak ill of the dead. She's always told me that. Don't speak ill of the dead. Even if you think the person is a horrible person, you don't necessarily have to tell people everything that you think about the person when the person is passed. I am an oddball. I am a strange person on this point because I look at this and say, well, wait a minute. The things that these people are saying is nonsense. We are going to be inundated with one media outlet talking about John McCain after the next. Huffington Post, if you were curious, has an entire list of people groveling and talking about how awesome John McCain was. Look at Lindsey Graham. America and freedom itself has lost one of its greatest champions. This is the stuff that's being put out in the news and in the media of John McCain. This is the image of John McCain that they're putting out. Now, my mom always said, don't speak ill of the dead. I'm going to accept what she says on this. I do feel bad for his family, Meghan McCain and whoever he's left behind. My heart does go out to them because regardless of what I think about John McCain, they were close to him and they have their feelings and everything else about him. My grandfather, I've said this before, was an evil alcoholic. The worst person I've ever come across in my life. Full stop. Hands down. Angry, violent. My grandmother, the nicest person you would ever meet, will call her a bitch, a whore, or wait till she'll be in front of people and calling her, your bitches and niggas coming here in order to come after you. This is a grown 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old man. And yeah, I'm using those ages because he said it throughout the entirety of his life. The entirety of my life. When he died, I thought, well, he was a horrible person. I understood he was a horrible person. Everybody else understood he was a horrible person. Why are we going through this, pretending at the funeral that this guy was something that the guy wasn't? Nevertheless, one person after the next will get to the podium and will describe a person that I had never met. And I sat there, and in an odd way, I had a certain amount of, I was sad over this, even though I accepted him as being the worst person I'd ever met. He told me one time when I was 6 years old, he calls me over and says, Jamal, you'll never be the man that I am. This is a 6-year-old that he's talking to. He's 56 years old. I didn't say shit to him. I'm playing in the yard. I'm trying to give you this idea of the quality and the quantity of person that this was. He was a horrible human being. And they didn't say a bad word about him at his funeral. And I was shocked by the fact that they didn't say a bad word about his funeral. And my mom said, you don't have to say anything to these people. You don't have to speak ill of the dead. Here's the difference. The media is giving lavish praise to a man that I have no idea who they're talking about. The John McCain that I knew, and just so we can look at this, because even though I won't speak ill of the dead, I will correct the record. I would correct the record because I think it's a negative thing. I think it's worst off. The world, us, our society, is worst off if there is a positive reinforcement to negativity. So a person that was decidedly negative. If there is a Christian God above, right now, a John McCain is looking above in a cage somewhere being tortured with fire at his ignoble life as is being read out in the papers. I knew this was going to happen, but by the same token, it's still a little mind-blowing when you read what people are saying about this. Look at it. Look at this. Look at this. Lindsey Graham, America and freedom itself. The concept, the very idea and concept of freedom has lost a champion. Chuck Schumer, Senator Wall Street. As you go through life, you meet a few truly great people. John McCain was one of them. His dedication to country and military were unsurpassed, and maybe most of all, he was a truth teller. John McCain was a truth teller. Sarah Palin. Oh, you remember her. Sarah Palin. What did Sarah Palin have to say? Now, keep in mind, John McCain, this truth teller, had a banner saying America First and put Sarah Palin a heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States. What did Sarah Palin have to say? John McCain was my friend. I want to remember the good times. My family and I send prayers for Sydney and McCain family. Sarah Palin. Barack Obama, of course, Obama was going to say something. Paul Ryan. John McCain was a giant of our time, not just for the things he achieved, but for who he was and what he fought for all of his life. I mean, look at this. You have a list of them, and you're going to have them all over. Look at this. Guess who else? No. Well, this is Human Rights Watch. This woman is head of the Human Rights Foundation. The finality of John McCain's death feels exceptionally tough for those of us who have fought for human rights. For human decency and basic rights alongside and with him and his staff for so many years. Now we would do so in his honor of his legacy. That's amazing. Human rights. Human rights. Who else? Who else do we have, Jamal? Oh, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. John McCain's legacy represents an unparalleled example of human decency in American service. As an intern, I learned a lot about the power of humanity. She learned a lot about the power of humanity itself. And government through his deep friendship with Senator Kennedy. He meant so much to so many. My prayers are with his family. Let's put this in context. John McCain was captured, tortured in a hellish condition during the Vietnam War. He gets out of that war, and when Nixon is in another illegal bombing campaign, John McCain comes out and gives his vociferous support for the bombing and killing of other human beings in that conflict. Not just giving vociferous support. Let's put this in context, because I want to go back in time on this. This is Rolling Stones. McCain was eager to make up for lost time, and the times were favorable to a high-profile veteran willing to speak out in favor of a war. With the Senate moving to cut funds for the Nixon administration illegal bombing of Cambodia, the president needed all the help he could get. 2 months after his release, McCain related his harrowing story of survival in a 13-page narrative in the U.S. News and World Report, at the end of which he launched into an energetic defense of Nixon's discredited foreign policy. I admire President Nixon's courage, he wrote. It is difficult for me to understand why people are still criticizing his foreign policy, for example, the bombing in Cambodia. This man gets out of torture. And because he himself was tortured, he hated torture. So John McCain had this great moral courage against torture, but only because he himself was tortured. And he comes out of this hellish war and pushes to kill more people. Bomb more. The president that's about to get impeached needs to engage in more bombing and an illegal bombing campaign. Just so we know what this is. Over 200 nights in 1973 alone, 257,456 tons of explosives fell in secret carpet bombing sweeps. Half of many were dropped in Japan during the Second World War. The pallets flew at such great heights that they were incapable of discriminating between Cambodian villages and their targets in North Vietnamese supply lines. Nicknamed the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they were indiscriminately killing people in Cambodia and Vietnam. That's the point. The bombs were of such massive tonnage, they blew out eardrums to anyone standing within a kilometer radius. War correspondent James Pringle was 2 kilometers away from the B-52 strike near the Cambodian border. It felt like the world was coming to an end, recalls. According to one genocide researcher, up to 500,000 Cambodians were killed, many of them children. Drop more bombs. Drop more bombs. When I'm listening to these people, the reason that the war is in me is because it's the stuff. I understand that people are saying don't speak ill of the dead. But what about the people that person killed? Meaning that dead person that no longer here, that no longer has ears to hear the things that people are saying, and people are saying nice things about him. What about the people that he was responsible for getting killed? He has advocated for one war after the next. And let's not obfuscate the words. Not just war bombings. Let's not obfuscate the words on the bombings. Dropping munitions on other human beings who are under those munitions, many of which are civilians. That John McCain understood were going to be civilians because John McCain himself had been in war zones, and John McCain himself just didn't care. He just didn't care. If you're telling me how great of a human being he is, I have to weigh that with my own value system. And my own value system is, should I care about the image of the individual when the person is living down to the way that I'm describing it? How are you telling me that this is a great man, that this man fought for freedom and America and justice and everything else, when this man has been for one bombing after the next? John McCain, these are the areas that John McCain was backing, either bombing or advocating the bombing, meaning vociferous support or just bringing up, hey, maybe we should bomb that particular place or this particular place. This is a list. The list is at the bottom. But just the fact that you can have a list of the areas that John McCain wanted to bomb. Look at this. This is amazing. Even before John McCain was caught playing poker on his Senate hearing on Wednesday, John McCain had already sent a message. Anything less than extensive aerial assault on Syrian regime by American forces will be an unacceptable approach to the conflict in the Middle East. This was hardly surprising. Over the last 2 decades, McCain has rarely missed an opportunity to call for escalation in international conflicts. Since the mid-1990s, he's called for regime change in more than half a dozen countries, occasionally with disastrous consequences. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Kosovo, Iraq, Nigeria, Bosnia, North Korea, Iran, Georgia, Russia, Sudan, Mali. Think about this. The person who they are describing in the media as being this great humanitarian and fighting for justice has been advocating for the bombing and killing of human beings and civilians in one country after the next. And when I say civilians, it's because, let's be honest, when you're talking about regime change, in what reality has regime change ever just said, we've gotten 2 or 3 people? Libya. They're selling black slaves right now based on what NATO did in that country. Guess who was for it? The guy who's dead. Iraq. We've killed 1 million Iraqis. Guess who's for it? The guy who's dead. You can go through a list. Syria. Same thing. He's talking about regime change in Syria. I'm trying to get across to you that if you're telling me that he's a good guy, but at the same token this good guy is advocating for policies that's going to get millions of people killed, then I would put forth to you that he's not a good guy. That he's not a good guy. They are painting a fiction of this man. This man was a war hawk. He was a warmonger. He was perfectly okay with the deaths and the slaughtering of other people. And just to put it in perspective, even on the domestic front, he dragged his carcass. Do you remember during the healthcare debate? A man who was getting government healthcare to assist him in battling a brain tumor dragged his carcass all across the United States to make a vote that would prevent upwards of 20 million people from getting access to healthcare. John McCain. just find it amazing. That's all. The Intercept has done almost an awesome expose. John McCain is great with journalists. I agree with you. And he's great with the media. Yeah, he's gotten the term maverick and everything else. But the reality of it is, he was named McNasty in high school, which is just kind of funny. But this is The Intercept. And I love this. What sort of person takes a break from taxpayer-funded cancer treatment and flies 2,000 miles to cast a vote that will result in 22 million people losing their health insurance and 10,000 more of them losing their lives, then make a big speech on how messed up the whole process is? Perhaps the same sort of person would relentlessly agitate for an invasion and occupation of Iraq that caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis that led to millions of others being displaced from their homes. Or maybe the same sort of person who would put personal and party interests ahead of the national interests when he picked know-nothings apart from a demagogue, Sarah Palin, to run in 2008. Meet John Sidney McCain. I'm going to end this because I don't want this one to go too long. I just want to make a very specific point. You can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that John McCain was this great fighter for freedom and justice, while at the same token being on the side of bombing and killing and maiming and ripping and breaking apart human beings, and being completely cavalier in the decision-making process of going about it. Just to make this very plain, the idea of bombing and that the bombing is going to hit the people who you say it's going to hit. Look at this. 41 men targeted, but 1,147 people killed. U.S. drone, the facts on the ground. Meaning the bombs that John McCain is talking about dropping are imprecise. In some of the reporting, 90% of the people that we hit with bombs have been civilians. Innocent. 41 men targeted, 1,147 people killed. When John McCain is talking about regime change, when he's talking about bombing people, what he's really talking about is bombing civilians. Now, either John McCain is completely incompetent, or John McCain knows that and doesn't care about that. That the bombings that he's talking about doing and advocated for over the course of his life was going to kill thousands, if not millions, of human beings. He's a warmonger. If he was anybody in any other country, we would have him on human rights charges to be dragged before The Hague. And just so you're clear, do you remember this? This was a bomb strike. I want you to know what a bomb strike looks like. As Americans, we don't see this. This is why you check your volume. This is why you check your sound. This is why you check your sound. All right. I'm going to make a quick point. We can't hear you. All right, all right. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. I see 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 it. All right. This is the point that I want to make. And I'll clip this out. Media has this odd way of detaching what takes place from who decided to do it. That bomb that went off, do you honestly believe that if a person was somewhere nearby that bomb and that bomb goes off, that person wouldn't be affected, and then that everybody who's under something like that goes off are completely associated with the crime? The reason why I show this stat, and I think I've shown this before, it's because I want to get across to you that this is not an accurate process. They don't know who's on the ground and under these bombs. They were looking for 41 people and they ended up killing 1,147. John McCain has advocated for these. The bombings are not targeted. They are killing large swaths of civilians. John McCain has spent his life advocating for bombings. Like, if you're going to tell me that this is a good man, the media has this odd way of disassociating what a person is advocating for versus what is taking place outside of the person. If that person has lived a life advocating for bombings, and it is very clear that those bombings are not these accurate targeted bombings that let's do a bombing strike and you're only going to hit the person who you're looking for, then I'm going to say that person is a warmonger. If that person has thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions associated with the votes and the decisions that the person was taking, then you can't tell me that it's a good person. You can't convince me that that's a good person. You convince me that that person is a warmonger and that there's something extraordinarily wrong with media when media can't see it that way, or at the very least can't see it that way. Everything I've told you is true. John McCain was a warmonger. John McCain advocated for one military strike after the next. John McCain has a list of places that he has wanted to bomb and kill and pillage. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. And maybe media is right. And maybe you could be in a situation where you advocate for the killing and the murder of thousands of human beings and still somehow be this great, noble person who's advocating for freedom. Not in my book. I don't think so. Let's see who's here, because this video has been screwed up and I may have to do this video again. Charles Piera, shout out to Comrade John McCain's brain tumor for getting rid of one of the biggest cancers in the world. Oh, geez. Anthony, always check your sound. Always check your sound is right. Always check your sound is right. All right, I might have to do this video over. Well, let's see. Jamal, this is your grandfather from the grave. You're a loser. Look at this little YouTube show. If it's a political commentator, I'd be on CNN making tens of millions cheering on war. There you go. Cheering on war. But he was the last lion of the Senate, dude. Whatever the fuck that means. Yeah, I have another video I want to do on this. But on this one was specific to McCain. The next video I want to do has more to do with... I think you can always see lies when you can kind of decidedly tell the truth. Meaning, if I know this is an ink pen and everybody else is telling me it's a ham sandwich, then at the very least I have one brick of truth that I can use to look at the rest of the world. This is a brick of truth that you can use to look at the rest of the world. The idea that they're saying that John McCain was some kind of stalwart for freedom is utter nonsense. John McCain was this kind of fighter for war and bombings and killings and murders. Anything separate from that point is missing the goddamn boat. If your goal in life is this kind of humanitarian disposition, it is impossible to say that I am for peace, but John McCain was somehow fighting for the same thing. It's utter nonsense. It's lunacy. John McCain called, yeah, I saw that. John Lewis called John McCain a warrior for peace. This is kind of my point. Cameron Smith, this is precisely my point. And then I love this part where they say that around the world, John McCain is known for this. Hey, if that's true, why not have those people from around the world? Have some of the people that were at the end of the bombings, meaning the people who were in Yemen, where John McCain was essentially backing this idea of Saudi Arabia getting more weapons. Or people who were, let's say, in Syria, who were under the bombs that John McCain wanted to drop, more so in the Middle East and getting rid of the Assad regime, putting in those terrorists. Yeah, show me those people. I want you to talk to those people. I want to get a real perspective of what people on the ground of those bombs thinks of John McCain. That's what I want. That's precisely what I want. Kissinger and Cheney. Oh, God. Oh, God. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? That is going to be amazing. Sick of even left channels portraying John McCain as a hero and a patriot. It's so hard to watch. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. What have you advocated for? What have you advocated for? I've told my wife, I said, when I die, create a little video that has what I've said from the time I started this channel to the time I croak. Let people see it. Be fair. Allow what I have to say to speak for myself. My foibles, my fuck-ups, my failures, the time where I've gone for like 30 minutes with no sound. Show it all. Show it all. Warts and all. This is who this person was. And I say that to say because you get a clear description of what was in this person's head. You can see them lying, you know, being assiduously working for the benefit of the rich and for the wealthy and for the top 1%. Yeah, that's John McCain. That's John McCain. That's absolutely John McCain. All right, I'm going to end this because, like I said, this one has gone on too long. And I need to see how much of it was fucked up. But I'll cut this, and you know the video's not being paid for anyway, so I'll cut it and I'll put up the right one. My point is saying that is there's no it's that issue of numbers. Like it's not like there's any funding on the video itself. So essentially the video just needs to be cut and put up. I don't have to worry about them getting numbers. All right, don't forget Keating 5 scandal. The Keating 5 scandal. What is the Keating 5 scandal? Oh, you've told me something new. You forgot. I get stuck doing research. I get stuck doing research so fucking often. So fucking often. It was about 2 minutes of cut. Oh, okay. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I thought it was like 5 minutes or something ridiculous. McCain supported Ukraine and Nazis. Well, yeah, that's because he wanted to push back against Vladimir Putin. But this is what I mean. This is the quantity of person that they're saying is just fucking awesome. It is nonsense. It's nonsense. They're lying. Savings and loan corruption. Oh, say that I do remember, but I don't know the details. I don't know the details. Thank you, Bo, like a leopard. All right. I have research to do. Okay, I'm not saying that one. Darren Levy, I'm not saying that one. All right, I'm going to end this. All right, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. If you have not already and you would like to, please consider supporting with at least $1 on Patreon. I'm trying to pull myself off of being reliant upon YouTube, said it that way. And I'll end it here. I'll see you guys probably in about 5 minutes. I would have started a little bit earlier today. I ran, one of my subscribers, I think she may be a patron, sent me, she's from Sweden. And she was telling me about something that I had said regarding refugees. And she wanted me to talk about that from the standpoint of Swedish politics. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was awesome. So I definitely want to do that story. I ended up doing research for that stuff and got pulled away. But airline passenger bill of rights, that's necessary. That's necessary. YouTube steals. Yeah, YouTube steals. YouTube steals. They fuck me. All right. Fuck me royally. You have no idea. But yeah, I'm not going to keep bitching. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. I'll see you probably in about 10 minutes. Thanks all. Bye-bye.